Hey everyone, Zion over here from Nintendo Life. And you know what I don't talk about enough is the Ace Attorney series. The Phoenix Wright games, Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. And I know a lot of other people out there think the same, but I want more people to enjoy them. I want more people to give them a shot. To chat all about it with someone else who also happens to love catching 2D criminals, I'm joined by Kate Gray.
Only 2D criminals. 3D criminals, they can do whatever they like, you know?
Exactly.
It's the 2D ones we've got to lock behind 2D bars.
Well, it's so rewarding to catch them. I mean, like, catching someone in real life means that they've done something heinous. Like, you know, it's. I mean, I guess it's very rewarding to catch them too, probably. Yes. But I've never done that.
Now, the stakes are much higher in Ace Attorney than in real life. But I don't tend to hang out, you know, with murderers. So.
I mean, I did jury duty last year, and it was very stressful. I got out like the first day, so thankfully I didn't have to stick around. But if they would have said, Zion, you can do Phoenix Wright in real life or in a video game, I would say, well, which one has the good music? And the video game would be it. So.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to do jury duty. That sounds like I've done a crime.
It does?
No, it's just because I'm not a citizen of the country I live in, which is Canada. They sent me a letter when I got my permanent residency at the end of last year that was like, here are all the things you can't do. And one of them is jury duty, so
Kate was, of course, incredibly just devastated to receive this news.
I also can't run for public office.
Oh, no.
Which is a shame. I was going to become president of Canada. We don't have a president. That's a joke.
Well, Kate, at least you can still play the Ace Attorney games.
I can, and I will.
So for people that have no idea, Ace Attorney games, I think... I want to say that they sound really boring on paper, but that's not true because sorry, I don't mean to say like, you're wrong, Kate. What I mean is, I think the first time I ever heard about these games was in like either Nintendo Power or Game Informer back in the day or some gaming magazine. Because there's no way that I like walked into the store and like, I guess maybe I looked at Phoenix Wright on the shelf and was like, yep, that looks like what I want to spend my $30 on. But I did. But the basic premise of the game basically revolves around you defending people in court and going out into crime scenes and investigating crime. And at least in the first 3 games, you play as Phoenix Wright, right?
So the first 3 are a storyline that concerns specifically Phoenix Wright. Then there's Apollo Justice's trilogy, which is Apollo Justice, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice. So sometimes you play as Phoenix Wright, sometimes you play as Apollo, sometimes you play as another character entirely. Then there's the Miles Edgeworth investigation games, where you play as Miles Edgeworth. And then there are the prequels, which are the most recent games, where you play as Ryunosuke.
Oh yeah, like Ryunosuke, like Naruhodo or something.
It's
maybe.
Really hard to say. I'm sorry.
It is.
Yes, he's lovely. He is Phoenix Wright's ancestor because Naruhodo is actually Phoenix Wright's Japanese name. It means "I see" in Japanese, which is cool.
Really?
Because it's like a aha.
That's cool.
Which his name in English doesn't quite get that across, but that's fine because that would be a bad name in English, I think.
That's totally like a lost in translation thing, though.
Yeah.
I was just like Ryunosuke Naruhodo, like that sounds cool.
Nice name,
but
yeah.
Beyond that, yeah.
But they do have a lot of pun names in the Phoenix Wright games to the point where it almost ruins the surprise because someone will come across and be like, hello, I'm the very innocent person, Mr. Bad Guy. And you're like, oh, okay, I think we know who did the murder. Or at the very least, someone who's bad.
Uh-oh, I'm also defending him. Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. It's not always obvious, but sometimes it's like, oh, come on. But that's kind of one of the reasons why it's so lovable is because it's goofy with the names. Like, it doesn't hide anything from you.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't, like, the series takes itself incredibly seriously. And the fact that, like, you are playing as a lawyer, investigating these crimes on the side as well, being, I don't know, do lawyers even do that in real life?
I don't think so. I don't think, no. It's based very heavily.
Like, that's a separate job, right?
Exactly. Like, you shouldn't be trusting lawyers with detective work. Especially because there's apparently like only one detective, which is Gumshoe, and he keeps getting fired and demoted because of how bad he is at his job.
Right.
So you kind of have to take it into your own hands a lot. But like pretty much the tension in every Phoenix Wright case is that you turn up to the crime scene and you're like, hello, I'm here to touch everything. And they're like, no, you're not allowed to do that. And then he's like, I'm going to go and tell my friends. And then his friends are like, yeah, I could get you into the crime scene. And you're like, is it that easy?
Gosh.
Really? And the answer is apparently yes. It is that easy. Who knew?
They're so comical in the sense that like you get away with things that you wouldn't normally be able to do like in the real world, and you encounter these ridiculous characters with these wild names. And like one of my favorite things too is, and I realized this just the other day while I was like playing more of Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, is so when you're in the courtroom, you'll be interrogating someone and then like a new witness will take the stand, but like you won't entirely see their face.
Yeah.
Like because they'll be wearing just like this ginormous hat, or they'll be like pulling it down in front of their face, or they're wearing a mask for some reason like on the stand. Like their outfits never make any sense. Like I don't know who allowed them in with these things.
Yeah.
But there's like this tension and like excitement surrounding like, oh, what is this person gonna look like? And then like as you break them down, like you physically see them like mentally like crumbling because they're like pulling their hair out of their head. But it in the court still, like it just still has all these serious moments that I don't know if maybe that's what like gets me to keep playing them. But
yeah,
it's just like such an all over the place series.
In a good way. It's very inconsistent with its world building sometimes, because it's based on the Japanese legal system, which I don't know like anything about, but I gather that it's sort of guilty until proven innocent, rather than being the other way in like North American courts.
Wow. Okay.
So your clients need you to prove them innocent. They won't just get off if you don't have enough evidence to prosecute them. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what Phoenix Wright is built around, is this idea that your client is the only one who's going to take the fall unless you help them, which seems very bad. Seems not ideal for a justice system, especially because almost everyone you represent didn't do it. Like, didn't even have anything to do with it a lot of the time. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time and looked a bit suspicious. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like once you get into Spirit of Justice, which is set in a different country entirely, a made-up country called Karain. Or Karain? I'm not sure. It changes to be even worse than that, because this made-up country is like, oh, we have this like mystic ritual where we look into a pond and talk to the victim who is dead.
No way.
And we say, hey, what was the last thing you remember seeing? And the person who has been murdered is like, oh, I saw someone with brown hair. And you're like, aha! It must have been
it was
guy.
you!
Yeah. And the whole game is spent being like, that's so stupid. Please, can we not do this? This is such a bad idea.
Uh-huh.
And so it's making fun of other legal systems. Like, I think the point of Phoenix Wright, it has many points, but one of the points is once you get to Apollo Justice, it starts being like, hey, this legal system is messed up, isn't it? And presumably Japanese players would be like, huh, you know what? It is. It's pretty messed up.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up too, because even in Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, since that kind of takes place, does that actually take place in Europe, or is it also like a made up city?
In Chronicles? Yeah, it's straight up London. It's real. It's not like Professor Layton does a thing where it's like, ooh, it's a kind of London. Everything's a little weird. Uh-huh. And you're like, right, okay. So it's not actual London. It's like some fake fantasy version of London where like robots exist or whatever. Uh-huh. Whereas Ace Attorney is in this like weird fictionalized half Japan, half America. Like the localization made it be set in America, so they had to like make a lot of things make sense, and it didn't really work out. But then in Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, they're just like, yeah, it's London. It's normal London with some real people, like Sosuke Natsume. Wait, is that his name? Yeah, anyway, the poet, he's a real guy. He really existed in Japan.
Wow.
And obviously Sherlock Holmes or Herlock Sholmes didn't exist.
Right.
But that's still based on like a real thing, the real books. He lives on Baker Street, which is real. I used to work like around the corner from Sherlock's house, which again isn't real, but his address is. So you can go to his house, which isn't real.
Oh yeah, is this house in the game too, actually?
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in the house. That's where your office ends up being based. So you have a little office in the attic of the fake house of fake Sherlock Holmes. Yeah,
that's incredible. The Great Ace 2 uses like a completely different kind of court system as well, where instead of just interrogating like one person, you like multiple people take the stand, and then you also have like is it like the jury?
It is.
Like, they're deciding who if the victim is innocent or guilty, but it's not based on just evidence either. It's like how they emotionally feel about the events and the story as well.
It is very silly. They do take a lot of liberties with how the actual British legal system works, but the jury is a very big part of it, part of like Western courts especially. The having multiple people on the stand at the same time is not, like, that is absolutely not something that a court would allow. Like, they're constantly talking over each other and contradicting each other, and like one early case has a guy bringing his baby onto the stand.
Oh yeah.
And you're just like, you can't do that. You can't do that in a court. That is not okay. This is kind of making a mockery of the legal system. And then the jury are often picked from groups of people who are intimately involved with the case in some way. And that also is not how the jury works. Like, if you turn up to jury duty for like a celebrity case and you don't really like the movies that the celebrity made, you can't be on jury duty. Like, that's a conflict of interest. You gotta declare things like that. If you're married to the guy who's being accused of the crime, you can't be on the jury. But it's fun, so who cares?
That's true. And that's the thing, actually, is the Ace Attorney games, which I don't know how you handled this back in the day, but when I was a kid, or at least even just probably until like 10 years ago, I used to just refer to the series as the Phoenix Wright games. But maybe it's because for so long in the West here, we didn't really, we had Phoenix Wright 1, 2, and 3 on DS, and then we had, like you were saying, we had Apollo Justice was the first one was on DS, then the second and third were 3DS, right?
Yes.
So like, and those were only, the first one was a physical title, but then the other ones were digital only, so like I skipped over them.
Weird
I think choice. I didn't want to pay $40 for a digital download. Like, I've personally always just been like that. So that's a me problem. Yeah, I wonder how many people have really played the 3DS ones. And you've played all of them though, right?
I have, yeah, except for Investigations 2, which hasn't been localized.
Sure.
May never be localized, is apparently one of the best games in the series, so I'm kind of annoyed.
Wow.
But other than that, yeah, I've played all of them, some of them multiple times. I've played the first 3 like 3 or 4 times at this point.
Nice.
And Apollo Justice is my personal favorite, so I've played that a few times. Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice, I really liked Dual Destinies. It's got some stupid stuff. Like, there's one case where you have to defend an orca. Like, someone accuses the orca of murder.
like a whale?
Yeah, like a whale.
Oh my, what?
It's really stupid, but it's so fun. I think there's also a good DLC case that I liked. Or maybe that was the other game. I don't know. I mix up Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice a bit because they're quite similar in some ways anyway. But Spirit of Justice, it has a really good ending, but the gimmick of like the communicating with the dead and taking whatever they say as the truth, even though like if you're in the middle of being stabbed, you're not going to have a particularly trustworthy view of events, are you?
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's so wild.
Yep. But they're all good games. There hasn't ever really been a dud.
I'm glad that you liked Miles Edgeworth too, because that one plays a bit different than the other ones too. I mean, I guess you are the prosecutor in that game, right? Like, he's not changing up his role or something.
Yeah. Miles Edgeworth is an interesting character because he starts off as this like awful guy that you have to deal with, and he's like, I'm grumpy and I'm just as good at law as you are, and you're like, oh no, he is. I have to like really up my game to beat this guy, and I hate him so much. And then over the course of like 2 or 3 games, he becomes like your best friend, And it turns out that you've got this shared history where you went to school together, and then he sort of becomes this like, I don't know, you kind of see him as older than you. And then it's like, no, he's the same age. You're both prodigies. You're both legal prodigies, and you're really good at your jobs. And then Miles Edgeworth turns into this like gray fox where he starts wearing glasses and being sensible. And
oh no!
And everybody thinks that him and Phoenix are boyfriends.
Oh, okay.
Their relationship is an interesting one.
Man, I've missed out on a lot of the Phoenix Miles or
you're
Edgeworth.
You're not on the right forums, I think. That's
no.
That's where you find it.
If only this was 2008, I'd still be on Game FAQs or WiiWare World or something like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, did you know that the Phoenix Wright games came to the WiiWare, like a Wii shop channel back in the day?
I don't think I knew about it back in the day, but like some weird games came to WiiWare. When I'm, writing an article and I'm like looking up in the database, like Monkey Island recently, and I was like, yeah, Monkey Island.
That came to WiiWare?
Came to WiiWare. The Tales of Monkey Island was episodically released on WiiWare for some reason.
Oh, okay. That was like was that the Telltale series or something like that?
I think it might have been. I mean, if it was episodic, it's almost definitely Telltale, isn't it?
Sure. That makes sense. So that's the crazy thing too, is so the Phoenix, like the original Phoenix Wright trilogy, came out on Game Boy Advance in Japan. I know Kate probably already knows all of this anyways, but I'm going to speak to the viewers now as well. So it came out in Japan in 2001 on GBA. At least that's when the first one did. And then we didn't get the remake, which came to the DS until 2005 in the US and 2006 in Europe. And then they've continually re-released these games on WiiWare, on mobile. You can find the trilogy on I think it's on Xbox and PlayStation to download now as well. It's on Switch.
It's on iOS, I think.
Oh yeah. And they've gone and re-updated all the visuals and stuff, right? So they're not just pixelated and it's all kind of hand drawn, or maybe it's AI upscaled. I don't know, but it looks clean.
Yeah, I was really annoyed about the HD art when it first came out. Mm-hmm. I just straight up refused to play it, even though the game itself is fine. You get used to the visuals very quickly, but the original games are so beautiful. They have this really detailed pixel art, sprites, and animations and stuff. And I don't know. There was a part of me that was being, I guess, a bit of a snob about it. For the record, some of the HD art looks good. I think some of it is a little bit ugly, but it let a lot of people play the games, and that's more important to me,
I do agree with you too. I feel the same way about The World Ends With You on Switch.
Yeah.
I think that game was built perfectly for the DS. Even controls aside, the visuals when it came to the Switch, they cleaned everything up. And while I think clean is a very fair word to use, because it doesn't look messy at all, but that doesn't mean that it looks better, right? And I see what you mean exactly with Phoenix Wright.
Yeah. It's a shame.
It's such a good game to be able to take anywhere with you on the go too.
Yeah.
I love having Great Ace Attorney on Switch versus I know it's on PlayStation 4 and stuff, but I would much rather be able to curl up in a ball on the couch and play, or decide I don't want to face the TV anymore. I want to face a pillow, and then I want to put a Switch right in front of my face or my DS or something. And
also, I've got to say, maybe this is also a snob thing because it really doesn't matter. But there are some games that I just want to play on a Nintendo console for no other reason than just it feels right. The Story of Seasons games are coming to PlayStation and Xbox, and I'm like, no, that's wrong.
It just means that people that have those systems get to pretend that they're playing on a Nintendo console. They're playing on the GameCube again.
It's not the same. Yeah, because A Wonderful Life was a GameCube game, and now it's on PlayStation, and there's a part of me that's oh, how could you do that?
You're right, though. These games they just make a lot of sense on a Nintendo console. And using the touchscreen to investigate pieces of evidence as you're about to, whether you're trying to just find more evidence within those pieces, or you want to present them to the court, or you're spraying this luminol, this random spray.
Oh,
that
yeah.
You're just destroying the crime scene with this spray, and you're trying to find fingerprints and stuff. And it works so well on the DS.
Yeah, if I could do that thing of everyone should play it the proper way, I would buy everybody a DS and a copy of Phoenix Wright. But there aren't enough copies of Phoenix Wright to do that for everybody who wants to play it. And that wouldn't be realistic either. Like,
for the whole world.
Maybe you also feel this a little bit, but maybe you don't. But going back to a DS or a 3DS now is quite hard. Like, it's so small. We've been spoiled by the Switch because I go back to it and I'm like, oh, everything's so little. Maybe I'm just getting old, actually. I'm just like, oh, tiny text.
I think you're right about the age thing, because I remember back when the DSi came out, I was working at GameStop, and my manager, I had the DSi, and he bought the DSi XL. And I remember him playing like Pokemon Black or Black 2 or White 2 or something on it. And I remember the visuals just looked rough because the screens were just that much bigger. And at the time, I was like, no, the DSi is fine. But nowadays, I have a DSi XL, and I think it's fantastic because maybe my hands feel bigger than they are. Maybe because they're bloated with water and old age. I don't know, but I think you're right though that it's hard to, like, I can't play on a DS Lite for very long, sadly. But maybe that means there's more of them to go around than we think. I don't know.
Maybe I see people buying 3DSs all the time on like the Nintendo subreddits. And I'm like, how are there still 3DSs out there to buy?
Sure.
But I haven't tried to buy one recently, so who knows?
Gosh, everyone's trying to, well, it sounds like not enough people are trying to get Street Passes. Dang it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually haven't really been outside since you announced that you were doing the Street Pass thing. And I highly doubt anyone in my tiny hometown right now are doing Street Pass, but I can ask.
Never know. Well, honestly, that's a tricky thing too, is because if you try to Street Pass while your system is playing a DS game, I believe you can't actually Street Pass because the 3DS, like it tricks itself into thinking it's actually a DS and it doesn't know what Street Pass is anymore. So it shuts off all of its 3D features. Yeah, so
that's silly.
But the cool thing is if you've Street Passed somebody that was playing a DS game but is now using 3DS software, it'll still tell you that they were playing like Phoenix Wright. When I was at GDC, Kate, there was actually somebody I Street Passed like 3 people last year. Maybe it was only 2, but one of them was playing one of the 3DS Phoenix Wright games.
That's a good choice.
Really cool to see.
I downloaded a bunch of stuff to slightly bring it back to Phoenix Wright. Because we're starting talking about Street Pass now, like it's one of your other videos. I do own all the Phoenix Wright games on my 3DS, and I actually put them all together on my home screen because it looks like they're all yelling at each other.
Oh man!
But I've been meaning to replay some of them because I'm like, well, you know, my poor 3DS is getting shut down, and like I have all the games, even the Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright one, which everybody forgets about.
Oh, yeah.
Including me.
I did. Yeah, entirely. Yeah, you're totally right.
It's really good. It's goofy because it's half set in Professor Layton's like kind of fantasy world and half set in Phoenix Wright's like sort of Japan, sort of North American world. And so it doesn't really make sense, and I don't think it's canonical, but it's still fun. Okay. I recommend it.
Do they get like teleported somewhere or something, or is that how they? I remember like one of them. They're not where they should be.
I can't remember the plot very well. I just remember there's this one bit where Professor Layton gets turned into a statue, and it's like, oh no. What? Because like in Phoenix Wright, it would be like people can't get turned into statues. There's a lot of cases where supernatural stuff happens, and the answer is, well, it wasn't supernatural, it was an illusion. Except for ghost channeling, that's apparently fine. But everything else that happens, like it'll be like, and then this man flew, and it's like, no, he was actually using a zip wire or whatever. So, you know, you play this Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright game, and you're like, well, I know this can't be real on Phoenix Wright's end, but in Professor Layton, this kind of stuff happens all the time. One of the games ends with you meeting a literal dinosaur. So you're sort of left being like, I don't know if this is fantasy or not anymore. It's very, very weird.
What a weird fever dream of a thing that actually happens.
It's very fever dreamy. Like there's all this like witch burning stuff going on in it as well.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah, really. It's like if somebody gets proved guilty of a crime, they get set on fire.
No, what?
Yeah, like in the court as well. I'm relatively sure that what happens is they get put in a cage and like lowered down into a pit of lava or something, but maybe that's just Indiana Jones and I'm mixing it up.
Well, is this the crossover game that you're saying this happens in?
Yeah, the crossover game.
Well, I mean, I guess
this never happens in the
they probably mess something up by being in the same universe anyways, so it's the world is just it's at odds with itself. It's fine. And the sad thing too that I just realized too is, you know, Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright did get a physical edition, which I'm very thankful I do have. But the eShop is going down in like a month's time now.
Oh, God,
it is. Yeah, so if people want to play at least like the 3DS series of games, they'll have to act on it soon, because there's none of those got re-released on Switch or anything like that, right? At all? It's just the base 3.
I'm still holding out hope for a second trilogy. So the first trilogy is the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy, which includes the first game, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the second game, Justice for All, and the third game, Trials and Tribulations, which are part of a 3-game story arc about Phoenix Wright and the Faye family. And the second trilogy is not as cemented in people's minds, I don't think, but it is about Apollo Justice and his family. So it starts with Apollo Justice, goes through Dual Destinies, and then on to Spirit of Justice. And the Justice is in 2 of the titles, and that's his name.
Oh, you're right.
It's also in Justice for All. So, you know, the second trilogy is about Apollo Justice, and people don't feel as warmly towards Apollo Justice as they do towards Phoenix Wright. So I think people don't think of it as a trilogy in the same way, but it is. And it would make a really good re-release as a second trilogy of like, hey, these games are really good.
Yeah.
But I assume there's some technical difficulty that means they can't. Again, all of those games are on iOS. I don't know if they're out on any other platforms, but I'm pretty sure you can play Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice on like an iPhone or an iPad.
I see. That's a really good shout. I think you're totally right. I forgot that they were on there as well.
It's actually, I think, maybe the most sensible way to play them right now, because the 3DS eShop is going to go bye-bye. If they bundled those games together, it would be interesting because they're all different art styles.
Right.
The first 3 games look the same and have a lot of recurring characters. The 4th game, Apollo Justice, is done in a similar style to the first 3 games, but the 5th and 6th game, Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice, are done in like full 3D, and so everyone looks really different, which might be a bit jarring. I don't know.
Do you think they're at a point maybe where they could would have enough resources from like the Spirit of Justice and
Dual Destinies?
Yeah, that one. Dual Destinies. Do you think they'd have enough resources maybe where they could just pull a Majora's Mask and pull resources from those games to remake the 4th game, Apollo Justice? And obviously that would take a lot of effort.
Yeah, I don't know. They'd have to redo a lot of the models, but there are recurring characters, so maybe, but I don't see them doing that, mostly because the HD remake of the first 3 games doesn't feel like they put their best effort into it. I feel so mean saying that, but it's the pixel sprites were so beautiful and they just traced over them.
Yeah.
And I imagine that they either didn't have a lot of time or a lot of money, and so that was just the best that they had. But yeah, if they did that to Apollo Justice, I think I'd cry.
Yeah, okay, so that's not something that you would not want to see them, do the clean art on Apollo Justice at the very least.
No, but I don't think that they would replace it with the 3D art either. I think that would just be so much work, and it would probably not work right for some reason. I don't know about the technical limitations that they have. However, Capcom has a lot of money, so they could do whatever they wanted.
But it seems like Great Ace Attorney Chronicles on Switch and PS4 and PC sold well enough. I think that it got some, Capcom was celebrating it for a bit, but I wonder what that really translates to, because it's not like it sold, blockbusters like Call of Duty or something like that. So I wonder what kind of budget they're kind of putting into it. But maybe we'll see more, another like trilogy set come out at some point, because Capcom, they they sure love re-releasing stuff all the time, especially that Street Fighter. They're always just like,
do.
When can we put out another Street Fighter collection? Has it been is 6 weeks? Is that short enough, or is that long enough?
Yeah,
maybe it's not that bad. But
was Live Alive a Capcom? No, that was Square Enix.
That was
getting them mixed up.
Right.
I do that a lot because I guess they just have a lot of crossover in my mind. I'm like,
Nintendo and Capcom and Square, they all kind of work together a lot, so I could see that. I see what you mean.
I know what you mean, but like, I think that Capcom makes a lot of weird decisions, and they are a little bit unpredictable because they released The Great Ace Attorney as like a bumper pack of 2 games, and I don't think anyone was expecting that. I certainly wasn't, and
those came out only in Japan. They were stuck in Japan for so long, right? On 3DS
for a long time, yeah. And like they seemed harder to localize than Miles Edgeworth Investigations 2. Because they were so entrenched in like Japanese culture and politics and British culture and politics and all that kind of stuff. So I was just like, oh, well, they're never going to release those over here. Fine. But hopefully they'll make another game that does get released over here. I think about the way Level 5 has been doing things for the last few years, because they are sort of similar to Capcom in that they make a lot of games. But one of them is the Professor Layton series. And that's really popular in the West.
Yeah.
And it's set in the West, unlike Phoenix Wright. But they were just like, no, we're not making these anymore. And it was like, why? No, we love those. And I can imagine Capcom pulling the same thing with Phoenix Wright, where it's just like, we don't want to make these anymore. And that would just make me really sad, because like Shutakumi is so good. So good at games. Because Ghost Trick is also incredible. Have you played Ghost Trick?
Oh, I have a copy. I've read a lot of different like bits where you've mentioned it on the website here and there. Like John Cartwright used to bug me all the time about playing Ghost Trick. It's on my backlog, but I didn't realize it was the same. Is it the same like director or writer or producer?
Yeah, it's also Shutakumi, who is like the Ace Attorney guy. You know,
okay, cool.
Yasuhiro Wada is the Harvest Moon guy, and Shutakumi is the Ace Attorney guy. And he provided the Japanese voice for Phoenix Wright.
Whoa.
For the first 4 games. So all the way up to Ace Attorney. And another fun fact is that the English voice for Phoenix Wright is that guy.
What?
His name. I'm having to look up his name because I don't remember his name. Sam Riegel? Regal.
Oh,
right?
I thought you meant Kumi like also voiced the English, and I was like, wow, that sounds very like American. Wow, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So Sam Riegel, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, is currently like really well known as being like involved with all the guys, the Vox Machina guys, like the Critical Role guys.
Oh, really? Like the RPG, the Dungeons and Dragons style stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So he's one of that group of people, but he was also the voice of Phoenix Wright. He's been in a lot of stuff. It's not just those 2 things. I think his sister, Eden, is also from a bunch of stuff. Like, they're just a very talented family. So she plays, I don't know, a bunch of stuff in a bunch of anime, I think, and video games also. I'm looking at her resume right now. She's been in a lot of Fire Emblem games. So I'm seeing here, like, Sam Riegel also voiced Teddy in Persona 4.
Oh, okay.
Phoenix Wright and Teddy are the same voice actor.
Weird.
That's so silly.
Yeah, that's so... How versatile. Wow.
I know. It seems like a really good job to have, to be like a voice actor. If you can do a voice that's really good for anime, like, you are set. I can't.
And Phoenix Wright doesn't even... Do the 3DS ones have much voice acting at all either? Like, I know there's some cutscenes in Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, but...
I think there are cutscenes. I couldn't tell you exactly, but I think they start doing like a lot more cutscenes once they make the transition to 3D. They start doing like fully animated anime cutscenes. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that for certain. I'm pretty sure Spirit of Justice has a lot of cutscenes. But I think mostly the voice acting is going, objection, and hold it. That's it.
So insane to become like so famous for just something like that. I hope Sam's collecting some kinds of royalties every now and then for that. Like I mean,
he's got like a really long resume, so Either way, I hope Sam, if you're listening, I hope you're doing well.
Cheers to you, Sam. Cheers.
Also, good job. You did good.
Honestly, it's and I know you love. I shouldn't speak for you, but I feel like when I think of Kate, I think I often think of like visual novels and like just the story-driven games, because I just don't know a lot of other people that actually like those games, like that I converse with.
Oh damn!
No, I love them too. I do.
You're the only one who likes these games, Kate.
That's it. All the visual novel adventure fans, please in the comments stand up. But
yes.
You know, when I was a kid, it was a weird combination of like, you know, being able to like tap the screen and yell objection, and or even like I think the DS games had like a feature where you could press a button and you could yell objection into the microphone instead, which I don't think I ever did that, but that was a thing,
yes, right? I did, but it works with whatever. So sometimes I would just hold the button down and rub my finger over the microphone.
And that worked?
And it would detect the microphone was really
is that
bad.
Like when you're playing like in bed like late at night, like you have the blanket like tucked over you and like your parents knock on the door and you're just like you're trying to solve this court case like before you have to go to school the next day?
Yeah, I think there is actually again, I can't fully confirm this or if this is just my made up memory, but I think at the end of one of the games it makes you shout. It's like this touching moment where it's like, oh, and Phoenix, we're all gonna go to this restaurant that you hate and paint each other's nails. And he's like, well, I can think of only one thing that I want to say to that. And then the game is like, now you have to yell into the microphone. And I'm like, oh God, what? Really? Maybe there's a button to skip that, but I'm pretty relatively sure.
You know someone at Capcom was like, hey bruh, Nintendo friend, check out what we did with the DS. Do you mind if we spoil Phoenix Wright for you at the end here?
Yes.
And he's like, and the Nintendo exec's like, sure. And they're like, yeah, check this out. You gotta yell into the DS.
You gotta yell objection. Love it. I mean, I was also like playing Phantom Hourglass at the same time as playing some of the Phoenix Wright games, and that does some stupid stuff as well.
Don't you have to like blow into the microphone for that one to like...
Spirit Tracks does that.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to play the panpipes, and it is one of the most frustrating things that I've ever had to do in a game. So thanks for that, Nintendo. Yeah, that was just the era of like doing annoying things with the DS and being like,
So what you're saying is you don't want the Switch 2 to include a microphone someday?
Does the Switch 1 include a microphone?
I don't think so. I'm
Really?
trying to... I mean, you could plug a headset in, right? But I don't think...
I'm trying to think. I don't see one of those little things where it's a tiny picture of a microphone.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess we could just look at it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at it right now. Yeah, it has a headphone jack, but probably not a microphone. I wouldn't be surprised if in like 1-2 Switch there was a single game, or like Mario Party, there was a game that involved you having to yell.
Someday, like 10 years down the road, someone's going to reveal a video that like there's a tiny hole in the Switch somewhere, and actually that little tiny hole is a microphone.
I mean, it's like the infrared thing. Like you wouldn't know if that was there if you had no reason to.
Did you know the Switch watches you while you play?
Spooky. Gross. So next Ace Attorney game, can we use the infrared? I don't know what for. But that was cool.
Like you're totally right though. That it's all those like little things I think was what really got me hooked on the series back in the day. And I think lately I just haven't found myself to have as much time for the games, or maybe I've found that I prefer to play shorter games. I don't know, but I really, talking about it again too, like it makes me want to go and push myself through Great Ace Attorney and finally beat Trials and Tribulations, because I'm a sucker and I've only played the first two to completion. But so when I had the first game when I was a kid, I was like hanging out with some friends. I was a very dumb kid. I know I've brought this up already, but maybe people can relate. Maybe you can relate to doing this too. But I put like 5 DS cartridges and my DS in my pocket.
Okay.
And I was hanging out with my friends, and we were at one house, and then we went over to another house, and we were like laying in the grass like at one point. I don't know, like we could have been like watching the stars. I don't know what the heck we were doing, but then I realized that like all my DS games were missing. And like I still had the one in my system, whatever, maybe it was like Snowboard Kids or something, but everything else was gone. And so we went on this quest to like find them, and then we never found them. But then years later I rebought Phoenix Wright, and I played it and loved it. I made it halfway through, and then I felt kind of like you said, you've beaten some of these games multiple times. Like the stories are just that engaging, and they're so silly, and there's so many jokes like littered all over the place that like, even if you have to hear a joke like a second time, it's probably it's worth your time. Like they're just so it's a great series to like invest yourself in.
Yeah, I mean, I have a handy thing where I fully forget the plots of all of the cases.
You do?
Pretty much as soon as they're done. Yeah, can't remember.
I do too.
Most things. I can usually remember like who did it, but the series is never really that subtle with who did it. It's like, oh, look at this guy. His theme is a really minor key organ just playing in the background like he's a vampire. And you're like, yeah, okay, he did the murder. Got it. Okay. And his name is Evil McStabs. You're like, okay. But I don't usually remember like, all the twists and everything. So it's really easy to replay. And I was hoping this would come up like more organically, but I guess it wouldn't. I played the games out of order.
Really?
By accident. My first game was Justice for All, which is the second game.
Wow. Nice.
So I start the game and like minor spoilers for a game that's like 20, 15 years old.
Whoa, ho, ho. Looks like this is the point of no return for the Ace Attorney chat. If you don't want spoilers, don't go past this point. If it isn't evident, we do highly recommend you play these games, though, if you want to experience it yourself. And if not, well, here are the spoilers.
The game starts and it's like, oh, my mentor is a ghost. And you're like, got it, she's dead.
That Japan and ghosts.
I didn't know it was the second game. It's just like, oh, she's dead. She's been dead this whole time. And you're like, yeah, cool. That's a weird way to start it. But the second game starts with you getting hit over the head, I think. So you have amnesia and you don't remember anything. So it doesn't matter that I didn't know anything because neither did he. And then I played the first game, and the emotional part where your mentor dies horribly, I was like, oh, but I already knew she was dead. So it didn't hit me as hard. It wasn't a surprise. So I did kind of ruin that for myself. But other than that, I've played them all in order.
It's a good thing to know that like you did play them out of order, but it didn't really like have a detrimental effect on your enjoyment of the series either. Like I remember being a kid, and I probably cried when your mentor dies in the first one.
Aww.
But it just, because it's a very touching moment. And I think, there are a lot of important things that happen, that like, but if I played them out of order like that, I'd be like, what am I doing with my life? I'm throwing that second game away, and I'm getting the first one right now, and I'm going to play that instead. But I'm glad that it really, that they stuck with you for so long. Cause now you've played all of them, but the one that Japan won't let you play.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And there are fan versions of it. I just like, until I can bother to figure out how to get like, fan translations on my Switch, I'm not going to play it because I want to play games in bed.
It's a good bucket list thing though. Totally. Like someday, someday I'm going to play Miles Edgeworth 2, just not today.
Yeah. It's frustrating because I'm on the Ace Attorney subreddit because I'm a big old nerd. And there's no news, so it's mostly just people being like, here are all my favorite characters ranked, and you're like, what? That's lovely, but I don't really care.
Sure.
In the kindest way possible. And I say this as someone who's made multiple ranked Ace Attorney and Zelda lists, like
of your own. Sure.
It's fine if people don't care, but a lot of them include investigations too in their rankings and their discussions of which are the best characters, the best themes, the best victims, the best murderers. They love ranking things. I think it's very sweet. And so, every now and again, it'll be like, my favorite character is Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth and Vlimpity Blimp Blimp. And I'm like, who is that? I've never heard of that.
So that's why you like don't care, is because you don't know. Do you just put up blinders? Or you just like, oh, I didn't read anything about that character. I don't know. I want to keep that a surprise.
Yeah, pretty much. Like sometimes it's spoilers and sometimes it's because I've forgotten the cases. Everybody else on that subreddit seems to have an impeccable memory. Like, I found it really hard to rank the cases because I wrote a list where I was like, here are the best cases or something like that. And I had to look up in each individual one to be like, oh, what happens in this one again? Whereas apparently everyone else in the world is like, no, I can rank them all. And not only can I rank them all, I know them by number. So they'll be like, oh, my favorite case was 3-5. And you're like, which one's 3-5? Or they'll be like, MEI2, which Smiles Edgeworth Investigations 2, 3. it's like reading a classified government document.
I really appreciate hearing that, because sometimes I reflect on the fact that, like, you know, we spend so much time with video games. Like, you know, those Phoenix Wright games are probably like 20, 30-hour adventures. But, you know, you'd think because of how much time you spend with a game, then that you would remember a lot more about it. But unless if the game starts with The Legend of Zelda and ends with Ocarina of Time, I probably don't remember its entire story. And and I just, but in a way though, that's really special though, like you said, because you can go back and play those games and like have it be fun again. Like, I mean, Ocarina of Time will always be like a special experience for me personally, but I wish I could like erase my thoughts and play that game all over again without remembering a single thing. And maybe it's because there's so much story in Phoenix Wright that it's just like, when you're done playing, you just feel overloaded. I don't know.
I think so, yeah. I think it's also to do with the fact that you're not really living it. Like in Ocarina of Time, you're doing the things that are making things happen. Ace Attorney is a lot more passive than that. You're mostly just watching things happen and reacting to them.
I see what you mean.
Because it's like a visual novel more than like a 3D action adventure. So I think that's part of the reason. Like, that's not always true, because I'm writing something about endings today. And almost every game on the list is a game that I have played to the end. I'm still having to look up the endings. I'm like, I don't remember what happened. And that's for games like Bastion and Fez, where I was, you know, doing the thing. So maybe I've just got a bad memory.
And that's, I feel bad about that sometimes. Like, I'm just like, why does everybody else remember so much? But it's nice to know that maybe not everybody remembers everything about video games all the time. And that's okay. Like,
yeah. It's actually quite nice to not remember things. It means I can watch my favorite films and be like, oh yeah.
Totally, yeah.
It's not quite the same experience, but it's still fun.
Yeah. Speaking of media, have you watched any of the Phoenix Wright anime at all either?
I have. Not a lot of it, because honestly, it's a pretty like word for word recreation of just the first game so far, which the first game isn't the best game. It's not bad. It's just, I know how good the game gets, so it sort of feels like a bit of a slow start. So to watch it back is like, yeah, I know.
Because I tried watching it back when it first was airing, like episodically, and I don't know, I couldn't dig it, but I kind of want to go back now, so that way maybe I'll watch that and then play Justice for All and then Trials or something. But I'm glad to know that it is so true to the games, at least. Hopefully, like that the opening prosecutor has like the whiny like objection voice that he does as well.
Yeah, I think it's the same. You know, the characterization of everybody is very good. I don't remember if I watched the sub or the dub, but I think probably the sub. And it's very pretty. You know, it's good. It's a good anime. There's not really anything wrong with it. I just don't really want to relive those first few cases.
Sure.
And I think I actually got to the second game in the anime with Mia Fey. Wait, no, that's the first game. What am I talking about? That's me rewinding.
Okay.
I also have tried to watch the musical a few times.
Oh, right.
And the live action movie, which is very silly because everyone's wearing like accurate wigs and like no one has normal hair.
No, you're right.
In Ace games. So yeah, it's a little hard to take seriously. And like the live action movie, if I'm remembering correctly, has like this really severe blue filter on it because it's like, the law is crumbling. And it's like, oh, well, that's not really what Ace Attorney is about. Like it is, but it isn't. So it's like a very serious, very sort of like desaturated movie. So it didn't get very far.
So we could go forever talking about Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. But I do want to ask you a question to kind of maybe round it out or end it. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, those games came out on 3DS in like, I don't know, maybe 2014, 15, 16, somewhere, 2017, I don't know. The mid 2010s, I think, in Japan. And we finally got them in the US 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago, which sounds insane to say out loud. But because Japan seems to still really love this series, like you said, like it has an anime, it has there's like theater, there's live action movies, there's a manga, there's action figures like Figmas and stuff out there. Like
I have the Nendoroids of both Phoenix Wright and Miles Edgeworth, and
oh, you
they
do?
hold hands.
Oh my gosh. If you make a video of yourself like playing with them, I will totally put it in this video. Like it could just be your hands and the figures,
Deal.
but I'll just, yeah,
Yes.
if you do that, I'll put it in. But I want to know what do you want from the series next? And I have ideas of my own, but I don't want to put thoughts in your head, and so what where would you like it to go?
So my main theory is that it's being done in trilogies. So we have the first trilogy, the second trilogy, as I've mentioned, and then we have the Great Ace Attorney, which has 2 games so far. So, like, the most obvious thing is to make a third one. But what I would like is, I don't know. I've not actually thought about what I want next. I know I want more. I just want more Ace Attorney.
It's a big question.
I like the gimmicks that they do where it's like, oh, this case is about time travel or whatever. But I didn't particularly like Spirit of Justice being like, we made up a country so we can make fun of them. I don't want more of that. But I like the high stakes stuff that happens in games like Apollo Justice, where it's like Phoenix has lost the ability to be a lawyer. He's had his badge taken away from him. That's really high stakes. You want to find out what happened and you want to fix it. You want to help him out. So, I think that that's going to have to happen to another character because Phoenix Wright needs a break. So maybe Miles Edgeworth, but he's already got his own spin-off series. So like maybe Maya currently in the series, I think is in like really serious training to become like a master, whatever she is, spirit channel person. And I gotta be honest, I don't really care about that. I want her to come back and do law things. But you know what, actually, having said this all out loud, I've realized that I want it to be about Trucy, who you probably haven't even met.
That's not the girl with the orange hair, is it?
No, that's okay. Athena. Athena's fine, but Trucy is...
Whoa! More spoilers coming up. This is your second and final warning. Just letting you know. Only because we care about you.
So Trucy Wright is... She starts off in the series as like, I don't know, an 8-year-old or something. She's very young. She's very shy. And she matures into, I don't know how old she is now, like 16, 17 maybe. Mm-hmm. She's a very interesting character. She's a magician with like a pretty messed up past, but she's super bubbly. She's really fun as a character. And she's constantly doing magic tricks involving hats and underwear.
Okay.
Which is a little weird. And she's not a lawyer.
Japan loves their underwear anyways, so.
Yeah. It's not... It is a little creepy. It gets a little creepy, but it's not her fault.
Sure. It's not her fault. Yeah, it's fine.
So she's not an adult yet, so she can't be a lawyer herself, but the games tend to skip forward a few years every now and again. So I would be interested to see a new game that's about what Trucy does. We get to play as Trucy, because we've always pretty much played as the guys. So yeah, let me play as Trucy. Let me be a magician lawyer using the methods of my adopted dad to, I don't know, do magic law or something.
I mean, I do like the idea of this kind of like future world almost, where the law has changed enough, and it's really cool to go back and play like Great Ace, or when I say go back, just because Great Ace takes place like in the past. That's what I mean by go back. But it's cool to see how the ways that they like managed to make the gameplay more engaging over the years. And like I love in Great Ace how when you're interrogating somebody, there's other people on the stand, and then you can like pay attention to them and talk to them instead, or press them. And yeah, I wonder what kind of magic tricks she would use to like would she read their minds? Like would she make them disappear?
She's not actually magic. She just does like stage magic mostly, like sawing people in half and things like that.
So be like a Danganronpa like style game where she's like pulling tricks, but then nobody actually dies. It's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, no. The Ace Attorney games have never been as horrifying as Danganronpa, but definitely in the same like genre. But like kind of like how we had Miles Edgeworth Investigations was like, here's a different look at the same system. You're getting to do investigations. There's this special gimmick where you can like do a weird ghost version of a crime scene. So you can like piece things together with the use of this like magic robot projector thing. I don't know. Don't worry about it. So something like that with Trucy, where it's like, oh, you know, the normal, like how normally an Ace Attorney game works. You do the investigation, you go to court, you prove them innocent. Blah, blah, blah. So it would be like some interesting twist on that. I don't know what it is. I'm not the one writing it. But hey, Shu Takumi and team, if you're listening, that's my idea. You can make that. You don't even have to credit me. Just give it to me for free.
Capcom did.
Please.
I'm assuming it was the same team. I could be wrong, but they produced a Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law game for the PS2 and the Wii.
I've never played that. I haven't played that or Aviary Attorney, which I get them mixed up for obvious reasons.
Oh, okay. Harvey Birdman is not like a critical gem or like or anything. It's just as a fan of the series, and it's really short. I think you can breeze through it in like 5 or 10 hours, but it's so hilarious how many like just the style has been copied and like there's Street Fighter characters in the game that just appear. It's very weird. I would love to see the direction that they go in. It seems like they can do anything, and it's just fun. It's so weird, but they're fun. Fun games.
Fun games, and you need to play more of them.
Please arrest all of the 2D and 3D criminals.
Yes.
I also wanted to mention I wanted to be a lawyer when I was a kid because of Phoenix Wright. Like I was a very like impressionable kid. Like there was one point I wanted to be a veterinarian because I wanted to help all the animals, and then like I wanted to be a garbage man because my uncle was one, and he would like always bring home cool stuff that he found that people would just throw out.
That's so cool. You do, to be fair, do that. Didn't you get like a CRT TV out of a bin?
Well, I mean,
it was near a bin.
I'm just, I just didn't get the garbage man job. I just do it as a hobby, Yeah.
Yeah. You don't get paid for it.
I'm a hobbyist.
Oh.
But one of my cousins was going to school to be a paralegal at the time that I was playing Phoenix Wright, and I spent some time with her one summer, and we didn't even like talk about what it was like to be like potentially to be a lawyer or like be a paralegal. I was just like, man, Phoenix Wright is so cool. This is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. It's a lot of paperwork. Phoenix never has to do paperwork.
That's right. You never. What if they make a spin-off where you just like you do the paperwork. You're a paralegal instead for the great Ace Attorney.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
I'd play that probably. I'd play anything with the Ace Attorney label.
I just hearing you say I'd play that. That's great. That's great. Well, I guess also, I forgot about this as well. There was one thing, I can't remember if I alluded to this or not. In post, I will go and fix it if I haven't. But Kate, you have some news as well about surrounding Nintendo life and your life.
Oh, I do, yeah. Well. Yeah, my Kate life and Nintendo life.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I'm going to be leaving the team. I'll be moving on. And by the time this video comes out, this will have already happened, so it's too late to change it. You can't stop me.
Dang it.
I know. It's very sad. Well, you can stop me, Zion, because it's not happened yet. But
I can?
It's quite late.
What do I do? Where's the button? Is there has to be a button somewhere.
I lied. You can't change it.
Okay,
yeah, so
that's
it's sad. It's sad to be moving on, but you hopefully will still be seeing me on the channel every now and again. This is my way of making sure that you have to do it.
Honestly, hearing you say that, it means a lot, because I wanted to, like, as I've been processing the whole like Kate's leaving, I've been like, oh, I wonder if I bugged her sometime to like come on and chat about some game sometime, like would she want to? Would you have time? So it's like that's really nice to know that you do want to come back here and there, and
absolutely
and bug me too if there's ever something that you're just like, hey Zion, I need to shout about this as loud as possible right now. Would you like to join me?
I mean, the annoying thing is that I'm pretty sure as soon as I leave, we're gonna get a Nintendo Direct.
Oh no!
And also, I'm not gonna be able to talk about Zelda when it comes out, and that has been like so much fun.
Yeah,
I love writing about Zelda. I love all the unhinged theories I get to write about. And I'm not going to get to do those when it comes out because I'll just be like watching from the sidelines like, hey guys, do you need someone to write about Link's hand again? And they'll be like, no, Go away.
No, not true.
So,
not true.
I'm preemptively signing up for like Zelda theories. Just like completely go off the deep end, talk about all the crazy things that I think are going to happen in that game. Oh, and Story of Seasons is coming out this year. It's tough. It's tough having to like let go of all that.
Well, and that's the tough thing is because you can only do so much, and you're going on like you're just taking time to like go do some crazy cool stuff. So it's not like there's no bad blood. It's not like we are like making you leave or something. You know, this was your your choice, and we like we love having you around. So it's not like please come back and shout from the top of the hill in Hyrule about why Link's hand might fall off halfway through Tears of the Kingdom.
Ooh, hadn't even thought of that. That's a fun one.
That was right now, natural thought. No idea why, but
no, I definitely will come back. And in case anybody's curious, I'm doing like a weird mixture of things. I'm not leaving for another job, like is the normal thing that people do. I'm going back to being like freelance, and I'm doing a lot of narrative work. So I don't think we've mentioned it on the channel, but I'm working on Moonstone Island.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's been really fun. I'm doing the writing,
and you've put a lot of like time and effort already into that too. It's not like a
we counted up the words yesterday, and I'm not done, but the words I've written so far it's around 100,000, which
oh my gosh,
it sounds like a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot. It's like I haven't written a lot, but no, I have apparently. Yeah, so hopefully when that comes out, hopefully this year, everyone will get to see my writing and they'll be like, oh, Kate's back.
Yes. Well, honestly, that'll be the cool thing too, is because I think you're like, I'm not going to hear like up here and like put you on like a pedestal and be like, blah, blah, blah. But like your writing is just so witty and ridiculous. And it's fantastic. So like being able to have a ton of Kate's writing, like all just in one place.
Moonstone Island. Yes. We've joked, me and the lead developer have joked about the kind of the title. I was not involved with the title, so I feel a bit mean being like making fun of it, but I really like the title. But it does have that thing of like Stardew Valley and like Harvest Moon, where it's like it's got the same kind of
I suppose but
ring to it.
Those titles kind of work, right? As well, I guess in a way.
They do, absolutely. You see a title like Moonstone Island and you're like, oh, I think I know what this game is, and you would be right. It is the kind of game where you can kiss everybody.
Sure. Oh yeah, because that's what you're writing a lot too, is like the
is the characters that you can date. Yeah.
Gosh, this is so fantastic. It's weird because you're like living in a dream world right now, but you're not, because it's your real reality. Like if Child You was like, hey, wow, this Harvest Moon game's pretty cool, man. It'd be neat if I could make some characters for it someday.
I mean, like it's crazy that Nintendo Life is the reason that I got the gig writing for Moonstone Island, because I covered Moonstone Island a lot. Like I interviewed the lead developer and I was like, oh, you guys, this game looks really cool, because I was excited about it as a player. And then they were like, well, you know what? Since you're so excited about it and we like your writing, how about you write for the game? And so that worked out really well. Yay!
What a wild thing. That doesn't sound real, but I believe you. Just because it's so like it's such a wild chain of events. That's what I mean.
It is. But like my whole career has been a series of weird stuff. So.
And where can people find you on the internet too? By the way, besides Moonstone Island, what's your like your internet?
That's because Twitter's kind of going down the toilet right now. But that's where I am a lot of the time. Twitter and Instagram is where you can find me. On both, I am at How Not To Draw. So that won't change. I'll still be there. And that's about it. I don't have any plans to do anything. Like, I was streaming on Twitch, but I took a break because I didn't have time.
Sure.
I might go back, but
Well, cool. Well, let us know in the comments down below if you've played any Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, or Apollo Justice games down below. If you haven't, thanks for sticking around for potentially an hour's worth of chatter about 2D lawyers and prosecutors. This was fun. It's good.
I think it's a good one. It's sort of podcast-ish. Just listen to two people talk for a very long time.
Yeah. And I really just I hope people understand that like these games they're very weird. They take a lot of time from you, but I hope it's clear that there's a lot of love to be found, and a cool community too. Like you said, people just still like making rankings of their favorite characters on the subreddit, just because.
Yeah.
Like that's cool. Good community.
It
Well,
is.
thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, Kate, for joining me in this chat. Stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I think
but-
if we're like, by the time you watch this video, Kate will be dead.
Oh, dead! Oh my gosh.
Ah.